Welcome back to Banging the Can, the Houston sports show that does not apologize for championship rings and tings, presented by Bolin Media. I am your host, Ross Bolin, and holy shit, yesterday was one of the craziest days in the history of the Houston Astros. First off, after rumors swirled for weeks about who the Astros would go after at the trade deadline with obvious needs at starting pitching and talks of bringing in another bat as well, Astros fans were antsy to see what brand new general manager Dana Brown would do. Well, things escalated quickly when the Arlington Rangers used the trade deadline to bolster their pitching staff by bringing in Max Scherzer from the New York Mets, as well as Jordan Montgomery and Chris Stratton from the Cardinals. The Astros currently sit a half game back of the Arlington Rangers for the division lead, and with the Rangers seemingly going all in to get back into playoff contention after a several-year stretch of irrelevancy and embarrassment, Dana Brown basically had his excuse to go and do something weird. Seeing as the Mets completely folded and started selling just a half season after dropping crazy money during the offseason to secure a roster that looked, to the untrained eye, extremely dangerous on paper, moving Max Scherzer to Arlington, the possibility of bringing Justin Verlander back to the Astros, once a half joke and seemingly silly Twitter rumor, suddenly became very real. And I have to say, this season, perhaps more than any other, has served as a reminder that you simply cannot purchase pennants in baseball. The Mets, the Padres, and the Yankees this season serve as proof of that. What a bunch of pathetic losers. Anyway, when I first saw stirring online around bringing JV back to the Astros, I balked at the notion, much like the Mets lost their first game after the trade deadline with a game-ending balk, a balk-off, if you will. Sad, very unfair. From a narrative perspective, bringing Justin Verlander back after less than a year away from the club, after deciding not to offer him the contract he wanted, after he seemed all too human in his most recent string of postseason appearances, it felt unserious. But when it became evident there weren't that many sellers at this trade deadline, meaning there weren't that many teams even willing to entertain the notion of trading away players, and one of those sellers, the Chicago White Sox, apparently wanted way too much to move starting pitcher Dylan Cease, suddenly Justin Verlander started to look like the best available option if the Mets were willing to sell the future Hall of Fame, Cy Young award-winning, two-time World Series champion back to the Astros. So Dana Brown went and made it happen, and he made it happen while maintaining our entire Major League roster, which is an enormous piece of this story, right? He only parted with our two top minor league prospects. And let me stop there for a second. For everyone who has been like, bah, Jim Crane should have just signed Verlander instead of having to give up his two top prospects to get him back. Bah, this is a terrible trade. Bah, please stop, you ignorant slut. It hurts giving up prospects, sure. Particularly Drew Gilbert, who had a lot of hype around him for those of you who keep up with the farm system, which is not many of you. And if you're one of those people, you need to recognize that. Nobody gives a shit, okay? The Astros are in a win now situation, not a build up the farm system and develop talent for down the road situation. Clearly, one of the goals for Jim Crane and Dana Brown starting now will be to build the farm system back up. That goes without saying. But when you've won 2 World Series in 6 seasons, when you've been to the World Series 4 of the last 6 seasons, when you've made it to the American League Championship Series for 6 consecutive seasons, you keep pushing the fucking envelope. You don't sit back and build up the goddamn farm system and worry about whether 2 prospects are going to work out longer term, which in baseball is always a fucking crapshoot. You never know. It's difficult to make the jump from the minors to the majors. That's why some guys spend their entire careers in the minor leagues, right? You push your chips into the middle of the table, you get Justin Verlander back, and you go for another goddamn ring. All due respect, nobody gives a shit about the farm system. Nobody gives a shit about Drew Gilbert or whatever the other guy's name is. See, I don't even know. All due respect, this franchise cares about winning championships. And if Jim Crane and Dana Brown had sat on their thumbs and done jack shit at the trade deadline, the same group of people calling it a bad trade and bitching about the loss of prospects would be absolutely losing their fucking minds over the lack of action. Pull your head out of your ass and enjoy the show, because it's winning time, baby. This ain't the New York Mets. This is the Houston Astros, and we aren't fucking around. Get with the program. So yes, Justin Verlander is 40 years old, and in the first season of a 2-year deal worth more than $86 million. But listen, clowns, the loser Mets are sending $35 million to cover part of Verlander's salary for this season and 2024, and then half of the additional $35 million if the option vests for 2025. We lost 3 starting pitchers for the majority of the season. We've been running out J.P. France and Brandon Bielak as regular rotation guys for months now. And you don't want Justin Verlander when the Mets are going to kick in at least $35 million and potential another $35 just because you think these 2 minor league goofballs might eventually be good enough to squat up? Get the fuck out of here. That's a ridiculous way of looking at this. You can't judge not re-signing Verlander after last season as a mistake just because this season went horribly wrong from an injury perspective with our pitching. You cannot. Nobody could have known that we'd lose Luis Garcia for the year, we'd lose Kade for several months, that Lance McCullers Jr. wouldn't be able to play at all. That's 3 fucking starters. So of course, obviously, in hindsight, not re-signing Verlander sucks, but when the window of opportunity to bring him back presents itself, you don't say, oh, well, no, we already had the chance and we passed on that, so we have to pass on it again. What are you, 6 years old? That's not how life works. We look forward, not backward. Has he been great for the Mets? No. But nobody has been great for the Mets. I would argue that's a lot more about the Mets than it is the players wearing their shitty Mets jerseys. So quit living in the past and embrace the now, where now we once again have a future Hall of Fame veteran presence in the starting rotation, a guy with the postseason experience necessary to be a leader in the clubhouse, and we plug a massive hole in a pitching rotation that is only going to get stronger with the imminent return of Jose Urquidy. This is Houston Astros baseball. Jim Crane is one of the most savvy and intelligent owners in all of professional sports, and he proved that again yesterday by doing what had to be done to make this team better. That's what the trade deadline is all about if you're in contention. You try to make your existing major league roster even more competitive. That is what they accomplished, okay? For all the shit that has gone down this year, for all the bad luck, all the injuries, for all the past, what used to be no names that have come in and filled the gaps while we tried to get our premier talent healthy, we sit a half game back of the division lead. If we beat the Guardians again tonight and the Rangers lose to the White Sox, we have the sole outright division lead. That is what matters. October is what matters even more. And this team, especially now that we didn't have to part with any big league talent to get Justin Verlander back, is built for October. Let's fucking go. One thing about Houston that you better make peace with if you want to survive, it is fucking hot in the summer, and if you don't dress accordingly, you will die accordingly. Fortunately, Bird Dogs will have you looking good and feeling good all summer long in the most comfortable and versatile shorts, pants, and bathing suits in the entire world. Today's episode is brought to you by Bird Dogs. What a coincidence. I've been wearing Bird Dogs for several years now. I'm wearing a pair right now as we speak, and they cannot be beaten. I wear Bird Dogs to sleep. I wear them to do yard work. I wear them to work out. I wear them to go swimming. I wear them to do everything. They fit great. They feel great. And They look great. They're insanely comfortable, and they come in a ton of different designs, all with funny names like the Art Fart Knockers, Duffy the Vampire Slayers, Uncle Bucks, Teddy Rubskins, the Forest Pumps, which I'm currently wearing, also Marco Pool Boys, Zero Dark 30s, and Tight Wads. I've got an entire drawer of my dresser occupied just by bird dogs with like 20 pairs in there. So if you want to look like money while you're working in the yard or swimming at the pool this summer, bird dogs are the move, friend, and their pants are great for the golf course or the office, or going out to dinner, or hitting the bars. You will look sharp. You will feel even better than you look. And now they've got great-looking polo shirts that are just as comfortable as the shorts. I got mine in the mail yesterday. It's phenomenal, but I opted to wear my Astros jersey today as a result of the happenings of the last 24 hours. So click on the link in the description below to go to birddogs.com/BTC, enter code BTC at checkout, and they will throw in a free Bird Dogs tech hat with every order. I've got the hat on my head right now. I received it with my last order. I've been wearing it this entire episode. It's a beautiful Bird Dogs hat for free when you go to birddogs.com/BTC and use code BTC at checkout. birddogs.com/BTC, code BTC. So, aside from creating a massive splash at the trade deadline by bringing back Kade Upton, the Astros closed out arguably one of the best days in franchise history with more franchise history. Last night, Framber Valdez threw his first career no-hitter against the Cleveland Guardians, and he needed only 93 pitches to do it. A no-hitter is one thing, but keeping your pitch count at 93 while doing it is insane. It is the most efficient no-hitter in 24 years since David Cone threw one on 88 pitches in 1999. 1999. 24 fucking years. Framber appears to be big back and locked the fuck in for the home stretch here, which is massive for the Houston Astros. I think this no-hitter came about as a combination of really two things. One, Framber had a pretty dog shit July and was particularly bad in his last outing, right? Then, obviously yesterday, the Astros traded for Justin Verlander, and as a pitcher, as an ace, right, as a leader of a team, when competition for that spot is brought in, or another big dog with a big name is brought in, you feel the need to reassert your dominance and confirm your spot as the number one guy, the number one option when a Hall of Famer like JV is brought in, right? So what better way to do that than by utterly and completely dominating to be the first left-hander in franchise history to throw a no-hitter? And man, Framber's stuff was moving. Like, he came out in the first inning, he looked pissed off, and his shit was literally unhittable for 9 straight innings. In the 9th, his shit was still moving like crazy, and nobody on the Guardians could get a feel for what was going where. Nothing was flat. So even when he missed spots, it didn't matter because everything he threw was so nasty that nobody had a real shot at solid contact. Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting performance from Framber. And he admitted after the game, like, I was curious what he would say, how he would discuss this performance with the media. And he admitted that in July, last month, he was not as focused as he could have been, which was pretty evident for anybody that's seen Framber at the top of his game and watched his several outings last month. Like, he wasn't as locked in as he should have been. So if he can keep his head on straight and keep the mental side of his game in check, which has always been the challenge for Framber Valdez, as everyone who is a fan of him knows, we are going to love what we see the rest of this season from the man they call La Grasa. Incredible performance, though. The Banging the Can hotline number is 888-203-2339. That's 888-203-2339. Call the hotline. I want to hear from you. I want to hear your takes on Justin Verlander, reactions to the trade. I want your Framber Valdez no-hitter reactions as well. I want to hear your expectations for the remainder of this 2023 MLB season for the Houston Astros. What your thoughts are on our current heated race with the Arlington Rangers, their signing of Max Scherzer, the Mets completely melting down their team after only a half season. That's one thing about this trade deadline that was frankly pretty shocking to me. Like, everybody knows Steve Cohen, the Mets owner, is one of the richest owners in all of sports. I believe he's the richest owner in Major League Baseball, and that he was essentially attempting to purchase a World Series competitor by signing all these big names in the offseason. And after they fell a little bit short last year, what I don't get is not even giving it a full season to play out. That at the halfway or a little over halfway point, he was like, yeah, you know what? No, let's just go ahead and get rid of all these aging, future Hall of Fame guys and Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander, and just kind of punting. It's a bizarre move. It seems like impatience to me more than anything. I also understand that they restocked their farm system or whatever. But again, it's just like, that's great. You got a bunch of solid prospects on your farm system. You're still having to hope that enough of those pan out to bolster your actual major league roster where things really matter, which is not a thing the Mets have done in how many years? How many years now? So, money is one thing, but money doesn't buy you a championship. It doesn't. And the Mets are the latest victim of thinking that somehow it'll be different for them. Oh, but for us, it'll work. No, it didn't. And then they give up before really at least getting to see a full season of what that roster can produce in terms of wins and losses. So I mean, just looking at what those two guys that got traded, Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander, did in this a little bit of over a half a season with the Mets, I feel like culture is probably part of the issue over there, right? Like, they don't have the team chemistry that you need. Like, baseball teams obviously cannot just coast to wins off of a few future Hall of Fame talents. If you want proof of that, look no further than the Angels, right? Obviously, they've got two guys that are largely considered to be two of the, at least 20 best players in the history of the game, maybe both top 10 guys when it's all said and done. They haven't been competitive at all. I mean, not in terms of being a realistic threat for a pennant or for a World Series. It's just that's not how baseball works. You have to have a complete team with team chemistry that produces wins on a regular basis with consistency and with guys that really, frankly, love each other. That's a big part of baseball. Guys don't all play hard for each other if they don't enjoy each other and like each other. And that's one of the things that the Astros over the past 6 seasons in particular have really, really established. The culture in the clubhouse, right? And I think that's why Verlander, having a no-trade clause, was only willing to be traded to one team. And that's why we got him back. Because he's been here, he's enjoyed the culture in the clubhouse to the tune of 2 fucking World Series rings. Why wouldn't you just run it back, try again, right? Obviously, he wanted to get paid. He got paid. And now we get him back at a discount while sacrificing 2 prospects, which in my opinion is a fucking steal. So thank you, Steve Cohen. Thank you, New York Mets. And thank you to the Mets fans who get to continue living their miserable lives while we get to continue chasing World Series. So, yeah, it's been a crazy day. Crazy. I'm excited for the game, which I think we play in the afternoon today. In fact, I know we do. So I'm recording as I speak. It's 12:10 p.m. Within an hour, I'll be watching the Astros again, and I'm stoked. I'm stoked on what's gone down. I want to hear your thoughts on it, though. 888-203-2339. If we get enough hotline calls, I will do another episode on Friday this week. How about that? That's the deal. If we get enough good calls, I'll do a hotline call episode on Friday. But that will do it for today's show. Remember, every episode of Banging the Can is available in full video on youtube.com/@bangingthecan for those of you who would rather watch than just listen. And on that note, please share the most unapologetic Houston sports show in existence with your friends and family. Support our sponsors. This week's sponsor is Bird Dogs. You can go to birddogs.com/BTC and use code BTC at checkout, and you will get a free Bird Dogs tech hat like the one atop my head with your order. And jumping back to YouTube for a second, even if you just like listening to the show on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or whatever podcast platform, that's fine. if you want to go a little bit above and beyond to support us, go to youtube.com/@bangingthecan and just subscribe, even if you don't feel like watching all the time. Maybe you will want to watch at some point, and then you'll already be subscribed right there. Shows your support for the show and helps us to grow on YouTube with the algorithm and whatnot. Another way you can help us out is by reviewing, giving us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And if you're on Apple Podcasts, you can write a couple of sentences about why you like the show, what you enjoy about it. That goes a long way as well. Thank you. But most importantly, like I said, verbal, word of mouth. Tell your friends and family that are Houston sports fans about Banging the Can, about the show, about what we've got going on here at Bolin Media. I appreciate you. That would mean a lot. Check out my media startup, Bolin Media, at bolinmedia.com. My comedy show, The Ross Bolin Podcast, available wherever you take in Banging the Can. Follow us on TikTok at Banging the Can, as well as Twitter and Instagram and Threads at Banging the Can. If you are a fan of F1 racing, check out Bolin Media's premier F1 programming at Formula Bone. That's Formula Bone, as in the bone you would give to your dog or whatever, or you know, if you break a bone. Formula Bone, at Formula Bone on all the social media platforms, youtube.com/@FormulaBone, where the host of Formula Bone, J-Bone, as he is known, Jared Borislow, has racked up over 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. If you're a big fan of F1, you will enjoy Formula Bone. Go and check it out. But yeah, as far as Banging the Can goes, that'll do it. I am Ross Bolin. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram and fucking Threads, whatever, at WR Bolin, at WRBOLEN. I will be back soon. If you get enough hotline calls in, I will be back Friday. Until next time, H-Town, stay down.